Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Patrick, and today we are going to do a POM-O FCC, which is one Pomodoro, which is 25 minutes of free code camp. We should finish up applied accessibility, and then we might finish responsive web design principles because there's only 4 of those, and then move into Flexbox. Let's go ahead and get started. I missed a day yesterday, of course. I noticed that if I don't do this like first thing in the morning, I tend to procrastinate and it doesn't get done. I get doing other stuff. So this one I'm actually filming in the afternoon because I have the motivation to do it. But yesterday, really no motivation. I think this is something I need to do like first thing in the morning, like wake up and then do free code camp before I do anything else. Or maybe I need to wake up, get some coffee, and do free code camp while I'm drinking my coffee. I think that'll probably work the best. I just got to make sure I wake up on time so I'm not rushing out of the house for anything. So let's go ahead and start the timer and move on to our first lesson, which is make links navigable with HTML access keys. HTML offers the access key attribute to specify a shortcut key to activate or bring focus to an element. This can make navigation more efficient for keyboard-only users. HTML5 allows this attribute to be used on any element, but it's particularly useful when it's used with interactive ones, such as links, buttons, form controls. So here's an example. Button access key equals B, important button, and it closes out the button. Okay. CamperCat wants the links around the 2 blog article titles that have keyboard shortcuts so his site users can quickly navigate to the full story. Add an access key attribute to both links and set the first one to G for Garfield and the second one to C for Chuck Norris. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know this was really a thing. I wasn't familiar with the access key attributes. Equals B, and then access. No wait, not B. G. Access key equals C. Any quotes around that? C. Okay, so if I click on this and hit G, will it take me to a different page? Not looking like it. So I wonder if you have to have a special setting to use access keys, because I'm clicking G and it's not doing anything. C is not doing anything either. So I don't know. Maybe it only works in certain browsers if you have it set up for that accessibility. And my access key equals, okay, let's just go and run the test, and it does pass. So it wasn't anything I was doing wrong. So maybe that's like a setting you have to set up in your browser or what have you to get it to work. Okay, use tab index to add keyboard focus to an element. HTML tab index attribute has 3 distinct functions relating to an element's keyboard focus. When it's on a tag, it indicates that element can be focused on. Okay. The value in integer that's positive, negative, or 0 determines the behavior. Certain elements such as links form controls automatically receive keyboard focus when a user tabs through a page. It's in the same order as elements come in the HTML source markup. This same functionality can be given to other attributes such as a div, a span, or a paragraph by placing tab index equals 0 on them. Here's an example. So here's a div with a tab index of 0. A negative tab index, meaning -1, indicates that an element is focusable but is not reachable by the keyboard. This method is generally used to bring focus to content programmatically, like when a div is used for a pop-up window is activated, and is beyond the scope of these challenges. Interesting. So they bring it up, but they don't exactly explain it. CamperCat created a new survey to collect information about his users. He knows input fields automatically get keyboard focus, but he wants to make sure his keyboard users pause at the instructions while tabbing through the items. Add a tab index to the p tag and set its value to 0. Notice using tab index also enables the pseudo class focus to work on the p tag. Okay. So if I came here and just tab through, well, yeah, okay, so it goes to Now it's tabbing through my whole browser. So the first tab it goes through is this text input, and then through the radio buttons, or through to the first radio button, and then through each of the checklists, and then finally submit button. So just tabbing through that. So we're going to add a tab index for the instructions. Tab index equals 0. And then so when I tab through, you can see the instructions are the focus, and then it goes through the rest of the form. All right, so that should pass. All right, next challenge. Use tab index to specify the order of keyboard focus for several elements. Tab index attribute also specifies the exact order of elements. This is achieved when the value of attribute is set to a positive number of 1 or higher. Setting a tab index of 1 will bring keyboard focus to that element first. Then it cycles through the sequence specified tab index values 2, 3, etc. before moving to default tab index 0 items. Important to note that when tab order is set this way, it overrides the default order, which uses the HTML source. This may confuse users who are expecting to start navigation from the top of the page. This technique may be necessary in some circumstances, but in terms of accessibility, take care before applying it. So I really don't think this is something that's specifically needed in most web pages. Camper Cat has a search field on his inspirational quote page, and he plans to position it in the upper right corner with CSS. He wants the search input and submit input form controls to be the first 2 items in the tab order. Add a tab index 1 to the search input and a tab index 2 attribute set to 2 for the submit input. Okay, so let's tab through here. So it starts with the home with these first links, and then the box, and then the submit. So links, box, submit. We'll see how it changes when we put in these tab indexes. Index equals 1, and then here we're going to put tab index equals 2. All right, now let's see what happens. Tab, there's a link, and then it disappears. That's interesting. Huh. I don't know if it's not working right, because it's just going through the links now. It's never highlighting the search or the submit. Interesting. Did I do something wrong? Tab index, tab index. Huh. It's interesting. This browser doesn't do that. I figured it would pop here, and then go through the links. That's what I would imagine. Isn't that what tab index does? Like this would be the first, second, and then it would go to the zeros, right? Tab index attribute to the search input tag. Tab index attribute to the submit tag. Value of 1, value of 2. Huh. Interesting. I mean, it passes, but it doesn't work when I tried it over here in this thing. See? It never focuses on the search box. Okay. Well, it passes either way. I don't know why it doesn't work over here. Alright, let's go to the next challenge. Okay, we are now in responsive web design principles. So we're going to create a media query. Media queries are a new technique introduced in CSS3 that change the presentation of content based on a different viewport size. So, as many of you know, like viewport sizes, it's no longer the early 2000s where pretty much everybody was reading web pages on computer screens. Now you got tablets, you got phones, even TVs for browsing the web and looking at content. So, as you can see, like when you look at a site on your phone, you can tell which sites are designed for mainly PC use because they don't change, and you can see websites that are designed for mobile use, which look better on a mobile device in portrait mode, I guess you could say. All right. Media queries consist of media type, and if that media type matches the type of device the document is displayed on, the styles are applied. You can have as many selectors and styles inside your media query as you want. Here's an example of a media query that returns content when the device's width is less than or equal to 100 pixels. So max width 100 pixels. And the following, which turns content, is device height is more than or equal to 350 pixels. So minimum height 350. Remember, CSS inside the media query is applied only if the media type matches that of the device being used. Add a media query so that the P tag has a font size of 10 pixels when the device's height is less than or equal to 800 pixels. Okay, it's interesting. So I'm going to do at media, and then we're going to say, let's see, the height is less than or equal to, so we're going to do a max height. Going to be 800 pixels. Alright, so then inside this, you're going to put CSS rules. So P tag, we're going to do font size is going to be 10 pixels. Go. I don't think we can change this enough to where it's going to make a difference. Let's see if we can resize the window and make this, oops, to vector. Okay, there you go. You can see there's a breakpoint right there. So here the font size is 10 pixels when it's under 800 pixels high, right? But as soon as we reach the point where 800 pixels breaks, you see the font size doubles to 20. All right, run the test. There we go. Making images responsive with CSS is actually very simple. You just need to add these properties to an image. Image max width 100%, height auto. With max width of 100%, we'll make sure the image is never wider than the container it's in, and the height of auto will make the image keep its original aspect ratio. Add the style rules to responsive image. So here you can see the image just kind of moves off the screen. Even if you shrink it down, you get these slider bars, not very responsive. So here we're going to do max width. It's going to be 100%. And there you go. You can see it all fits on the screen now. And then height, the auto. So I forgot the semicolon here. And this should be responsive. If we resize this, you can see how this top one is responsive, the bottom one is not responsive. See how the image shrinks or grows until it's 100% width. It should never be wider than its container. In this case, the preview window, it should keep its original aspect ratio. Yep. Run the test, and those pass. Next challenge. With the increase of internet-connected devices, their sizes and specifications vary, and the displays they use could be different externally and internally. Pixel density is an aspect that could be different on one device from others, and this density is known as pixels per inch, which is PPI, or dots per inch, which is DPI. The most famous such display is one known as the Retina display on the latest Apple MacBook Pro notebooks and recently iMac computers. Due to the difference in pixel density between a Retina and non-Retina displays, some images that have not been made with a high-resolution display in mind could look pixelated when rendered on a high-resolution display. The simplest way to make your images appear properly on high-resolution displays, such as MacBook Pro's Retina display, is to define their width and height values as only half of what the original file is. Okay. Here's an example of an image that is only using half of the original height and width. So you got a cool pic here that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels. And then here the height and width are 250 pixels. But yet that doesn't make it responsive, right? You see how that goes off the page, it's not responsive. Oops, so I haven't even messed with this code yet, I don't know what I'm talking about. Set the width and height of the image tag to half of their original values. In this case, both the original height and width are 200 pixels. So We're just going to put in a height of 100 pixels, a width of 100 pixels. And there we go. It's small and not responsive. It doesn't grow or... I think in the case of like if you wanted responsive, you would put a max width of still 100%, but you would also use a width of half, right? Is that how it would work? I mean, if you know the answer, let me know. Like, say you had a image that's, 300 by 300, and you want the full resolution for Retina displays, but at the same time you want it responsive. Would you put the height and width in there, or would you just put the width, leave the height at auto? Would you put the width at half, and then put a max width at 100%? Is that how it would work? Because I would think width would override everything, and it would never be responsive. But I don't know. That's interesting. Alright, let's run these tests. They should pass. Alright, make typography responsive. Instead of using em or pixels to size text, you can use viewport units for responsive typography. Viewport units, like percentages, are relative units, but they are based off different items. Viewport units are relative to the viewport dimensions with the height of device, and percentages are relative to the size of the parent container element. The four different viewport units are VW for viewport width, VH for viewport height. So 3 VH would be 3% of the viewport's height. 10 VW would be 10%. So it's a percentage of the viewport width or viewport height. VMin, viewport minimum, would be 70% of the viewport's smaller dimension. Viewport maximum would be 100%. So 100 Vmax would be 100% of the viewport's bigger dimension, height or width. Here's an example that sets a body tag to 30% of the viewport's width. Okay. Set the width of the H2 tag. Set the width of the H2 tag to 80% of the viewport's width, and the width of the paragraph be 75% of the viewport's smaller dimension. Okay. So H2 is going to be width 80%, so it'd be 80 VW. And then, right, viewport width. Okay, and the paragraph, we're going to do width of 75 VN. Alright, so the text should be responsive here. There you go. You see it never actually hits the, it never comes close to the border. So you never see it getting close to the right side there. It adjusts the whole way. And the same thing with the title. And in fact, if you added more words to this title, let's just copy this right here. Paste it in here. You'll see that it never gets close enough to that border. Keeps resetting. Alright. Should pass. There we go. That's it. Not a lot of time spent on responsive web design principles. I think this is something FreeCodeCamp should spend more time on. Especially people that are really into learning the front end, because like responsive web design is really important. Alright folks, sorry about that. My recording software crashed for some odd reason. It likes to do that. For some reason when I'm here on FreeCodeCamp, like I record other stuff on the internet for other projects and stuff, but as soon as I got FreeCodeCamp up, there's something in the code here that like spikes my memory or something. But I paused the timer here, so I'm gonna restart it. As I was saying, I was just saying that responsive web design principles are very important. Wish FreeCodeCamp spent a little bit more time on it. All right. So now we are on to Flexbox. Flexbox is really cool, as well as Grid. I remember learning this before, and it was pretty cool. So this section uses alternating challenge tiles to show how to use CSS to position elements in a flexible way. First, a challenge will explain theory. Then a practical challenge will using a simple tweak component will apply the flexbox concept. So placing the CSS property display flex on an element allows you to use other flex properties to build a responsive page. Add the CSS property display to box container and set its value to flex. So right here, nothing really. You can see it kind of stretches out depending on the viewports. It's not set at a width. So like the box one, the width is 50% of its container. Box 2 is 50% of the container height. Same thing with the width. So as the container grows, the width grows, but we're not changing the height, so that's not hurting anything. Alright, so we're going to do display flex. And as you can see, it popped this up here. So it kind of made it inline, I guess, right? So no matter how it's always going to be 50% width of the box. But it was interesting they were stacked before because each one was its own little block element, I guess you could say. But now it's inline. It's interesting. Alright, next challenge. To the right is a tweet embed that will be used as a practical example. Some of the elements would look better with a different layout. The last challenge demonstrated display flex. Here you'll add it to several components in the tweet embed to start adjusting their positioning. Add the CSS property display flex to all of the following items. Note that the selector is already set up in CSS, so a lot of stuff going on here. Well, not a whole lot of HTML in here. That's good. So you got a button, you got some text here, some text down here, likes, share, retweet, like. You have a div class called likes, a div class called retweets, div class called CTA, which has the buttons in it for share, retweet, and like, follow button. You got a div class profile name with the H3 Quincy Larson. Then you got your button, and then you have a div called inner, where the actual tweet content is. All right, so we're going to add flex to the header. So the header has the image all the way through to the follow button. So this right here is considered the header. All right, let's see how it changes when we add flex to it. Display flex. Okay, you can see it all moves up in line with each other, including the follow button. Profile name, which is probably Quincy Larson, right? I'm just trying to follow along with everything. So profile name is Quincy Larson and this at Osea. So we're gonna add display flex here, see how it changes, which is gonna be this little section right here. Display flex. You can see the Osea pops up in line with that. The header's follow button, which is over here. So we're gonna do display flex. It kind of fills out the height of the container, but it's still in the same location as far as the horizontal. All right, the headers H3 and H4, which are these two again, right? Profile name. Interesting. It's interesting that we're doing it again for the H3 and H4. That's in the header. You got header H3, H4. But yeah, you also have profile name, which is also this. It's the same thing, right? Because div class profile name is the div. Okay. I got it. So this rule up here, header profile name, is the div. And then this rule just affects the header and h4, which is kind of confusing because visually they're the same thing. Because you don't see the div, but if there was a box around this, like a border, this right here, this profile name would affect the box, while this actually affects the text. It's interesting to do it twice like that. We'll see what happens. So nothing, yeah, you can't see anything happen there. The footer, so the footer has all this down here, stats, what have you. Okay, so the footer, you can see how all this changes. Display, flex. There you go. This pops up to here. These are kind of still one ahead of the other. So stats, you're gonna have retweets. All right, our buzzer is done, but we're gonna go ahead and finish this challenge. These and then this div. So like this div, right? This div, and then this div kind of went next to each other. All right, so footer and then the footers dot stats, which are right here. So these will become inline as well. Display, flex, and you'll see the likes pop up. Okay, so that's everything. We're gonna run the test. It should pass. Yeah, looks good. I was trying to like visualize how everything was moving at each step along the way of adding display flex to it. Yeah, I mean, this is just something that's learned with repetition. But let's go to the next challenge, and then we'll jump on this tomorrow, hopefully, in another problem of FCC. If you happen to watch this, thanks for watching. And yeah, I'll try not to procrastinate tomorrow and miss another day. But who knows? But I'm going to set the intention that I'm going to get another 25 minutes done tomorrow. All right, if you watch this, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all, hopefully, tomorrow.